The 28th, we are here for a work session of the City Council. I'm going to open the floor for public comments on non-agenda items. Any member of the public wishes to speak to the council on any item not on our agenda can come forward if you're in the room. Raise your hand if you are on Zoom. City Clerk, I do see Nancy on Zoom. Thank you. Same time. And Nancy, when you're in the room, you can turn your camera on and unmute.
Okay. It had to do some computer things for me.
No
I
problem.
wanted to commend the fella that is hanging the Christmas lights in City Hall and downtown. They are beautiful. And tell him thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Nancy. We're thankful you took your time to let us know. Thank you so much. And we will make sure he knows.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public wishing to speak on any item not on the agenda can raise your hand on Zoom, come forward in the room. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close that public comment period, and we will begin our first work session, and that is the presentation by Lamar Advertising regarding possible changes to the Laramie Municipal Code around billboards. Mr. Gavatuller.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of council. This first work session item is to discuss the proposal from Lamar Advertising regarding an amendment to our billboard regulations. This proposal seeks to eventually transition 5 static billboards along 3rd Street and 1 static billboard along Grand into digital format. To date, the city's approach to billboards has been cautious and measured. Since 2009, when we implemented our Unified Development Code. Since then, billboards have been categorized as a non-conforming use throughout the city with some specific allowances in the I-80 corridor. So this approach reflects the community's priorities and is reflected in many of our plans that we have, including the comprehensive plan that have been adopted over the years. This cautious approach to billboards and furthering them in the city limits. So Lamar's proposal presents us with an opportunity to reconsider our regulations in the light of technological advancements and changing advertising needs. The adoption of digital billboards could offer some benefits, enhanced communication capabilities and economic advantages to local businesses, just naming a few. However, it is crucial to weigh these potential benefits against the established plans that we do have in place, as well as the reluctance towards expanding billboards that was how the City Planning Commission responded to this same exact presentation about 3 months ago. The concerns raised by Planning Commission centered on the potential impact on our city's visual landscape, visual clutter, and the precedent that this code amendment might establish where it could expand billboards not only in these 5 locations, but new billboards within the city limits as well. So with these considerations in mind, I'd like to turn it over back to you, Honorable Mayor, for a presentation by the Lamar Advertising Group so they can present their perspective. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Gavatuller. All right. Who are we recognizing from there? Yeah, please come forward, Megan. We will just need your name, and you'll have at it.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and members of council, my name is Megan Getz. I live here in Laramie. I'm an attorney here, and I have the opportunity
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you. As to what you might envision, what you might have as far as reservations go, and to really talk this idea through with you. Most communities across our state, certainly the communities up and down the Front Range, are moving towards modernizing technology on existing billboards to be digital. And so tonight what we want to do is we want to explain what that means, because sometimes that word digital billboards can create connotations or even imaginations in people's minds of what they do and maybe what they don't do. So we want to really talk through what a digital billboard means. The other thing that we really want to do is we want to explain how this ties into what we understand based on the city's public campaigns that we've, as citizens, been able to review as far as your desire to better communicate with the citizens of Laramie and Albany County. We're aware of the media advertisement on those desires and those approaches, and so we think it's really appropriate for you to see Lamar's proposal as possibly a tool in which you can enhance some of those other platforms that you're moving towards. So tonight is really an opportunity for us to present information, for you to ask questions, for us to understand where your concerns might be, and then for us to go back and work with Planning Commission to see if we can develop an approach that is mutually beneficial for everyone. In this day and age, it's really critical that we embrace the modernization of the technology that's out there, since it is so critical to economic development and it is what our businesses we're hearing really want. And how do we then reconcile that with what your comprehensive plan is and what your regulations are to meet a mutually acceptable, hopefully, decision. So tonight we are not asking for anything. We are showing you what we are proposing and what we are thinking, and then we're seeking your direction ultimately so that we can go back and work with staff to determine if there is a solution that works. I have several folks here from Lamar with me, thank you so much, that I'd like to introduce. They're going to kind of pop in and out of the conversations with me. The first is Craig Bendixson. Craig is the sales manager. These are all Wyoming folks. They have traveled, and so we're from Cheyenne and Casper, so we're super grateful. You put us first on the agenda so they can get home tonight, but they are Wyoming folks. Matt Young is also here. He is operations manager and will be speaking to a lot of the technical aspects of the board. And Jamie Rideout is the real estate manager who works with most of the private landowners here in Laramie and Albany County as it relates to the boards itself. With that, I'd like to turn it over first to Craig to tell you a little bit about Lamar as a company and give you an overview of what the digital billboard looks like and what it means.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. Thanks. Craig Bendixson, Sales Manager, Lamar Advertising. Just a little history on Lamar. We were founded in 1902, one of the largest outdoor companies in the world. Locally, though, we have offices in Cheyenne and Casper, managing over 1,300 billboard faces across 3 states, which would be Wyoming, western Nebraska, and northeast Utah, sorry. And my apologies, we have a couple slides that we had already submitted to you guys that I needed to change, and so you'll see these slides coming up. But we operate currently 16 of these digital billboard faces statewide. I guess I'll go back 8 in Cheyenne, 4 in Casper, 3 in Rock Springs, and 1 in Riverton. And how do they work? So it's a high-def digital image, but it is static. There's no scrolling, there's no flashing, there's no motion pictures, there's none of that. It's just a static ad that will flip every 8 seconds. And the reason we have it at 8 seconds, that's YDOT's code. And so we just follow what YDOT has on that. So the number of slots we sell in this how we do Cheyenne and Casper, we sell them in 8 slots. So it's 8 8-second slots that the advertisers flip through. One of those slots can be used for emergency messaging for for the city. And you can use that for whatever, you'd want. If it's, drive safe, it's New Year's Eve, it's an Amber Alert, it's, you can have direct access to this as well, where you could have somebody on your staff that will be able to do real-time messaging on that, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for flipping to that slide. We are going to go back and cover that in just a second. Use the clicker. Perfect. So tonight, in addition to more information on the billboard itself, we just wanted you to have that overview, because as we talk about this, it might make more sense when you hear the word slots. When you hear the word, here's where the city can participate and communicate. The city will have the opportunity to have one of those slots to be able to funnel messages to the community that is in an emergency-based situation. It would also be something that, for example, if there was a football game and you were trying to direct traffic on Grand, you would have the opportunity to be able to use that as one of the messaging systems for the community. So we'll go through more of the technical information here in just a minute. We'll talk about the proposed locations that Lamar is thinking would be ideal to change the existing structures, to just modernize the existing structure faces. So there are already billboards in the community up in place. We're talking about modernizing those faces to become this current technology. It would not be all billboards. It is a select few, so we'll go through those locations. We'll talk more about the details and the benefits. The benefits are not just public safety and community communication, but there are also a lot of environmental and pollution benefits that come with these new billboards. We'll talk about the safety, and we'll talk also about how it ties into the community. So this was the front page of the Laramie Boomerang that you all probably remember when you had your discussion about making progress to communicate more with the community. And frankly, we were in discussions with the Planning Commission staff when this news article ran, and it really prompted us to go back and listen and learn as to the discussion that you all had about how it is a priority for Laramie City Council and our governing bodies to communicate more with the constituents of Laramie. And so it was ironic at best, because that was one of the benefits and the messages that we saw in providing some of this modernization to a few of these billboard fronts. So we'd like to partner with you and help you advance that priority. This is an actual video in and of itself of what advantages come with this type of billboard. And so I'm going to just ask Nancy, if you don't mind playing it, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Dynamic digital designs, also known as iSpots, have a little something extra. Adding an element that's instant, informative, and/or interactive is a great way to make a digital ad stand out. Lamar's social media capabilities pull real-time social media feeds and place them on large format out-of-home billboards. Social media capabilities include Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, allowing a client to extend their social efforts to a larger target audience. There is no additional charge to implement social media, and it only requires a few steps. Lamar offers several digital capabilities that are easy to use and are a great way to create interesting, memorable impressions among your target audience. Consider dynamic digital ideas for your current and future campaigns with Lamar Advertising.
Thank you.
Call your doorbell camera company and...
He is not part of our video. We're gonna talk about, and we can certainly answer any further questions that you have, but we're gonna talk about how 93% of the advertisers or the businesses that use a billboard within our community, and this is not just unique to Laramie, but it is true for Laramie, are local businesses. So it does not make sense for these digital billboards to be on the interstate, on Interstate I-80, and that's why when we talk about the locations, we'll speak more about that. These are used to funnel traffic, to funnel business, to promote whatever is happening inside our community. And so that is why the interactive approach and the ability to have that real time is so important and so valuable. I want to turn it over to Matt so he brought with him a panel or a modular of the panel so you can actually see the technology of what the face of the billboard would look like, and is going to describe to you more about actually how the conversion of the existing boards that are in the community right now, some of them, would be modified. You want to do the clip or do you want me to?
I'll let you do it.
Okay.
Welcome.
Good evening. Matt Young, our operations manager for Lamar, Wyoming and Western Nebraska. So this is what the faces are made out of. There are 136 of these in the size that we're proposing within Laramie here, and that's what makes up the face. Is each one of these click into a slot within the cabinet of the face itself. And inside that you have all of the LEDs. What you see here are directional louvers. From the side it's easier to see. You can see how they angle downward to help prevent light pollution, because that's always been a concern with digital billboards. They also have some very specific makes of these for areas that border neighborhoods, where they can put individual louvers in between so they can direct the light towards traffic and away from neighborhoods or other light sensitive areas. As Craig had mentioned, the messages don't scroll. Think of a PowerPoint presentation, they don't fade, or there is no movement in between the message themselves. It is from one message directly to another. These are by far more environmentally friendly for us as a company as well, because we don't have to visit the site like we do with a static billboard. I have to send a crew out there and they drive and change out the ads each time. With these, all the ads are changed remotely, and they're monitored by our network operations in Louisiana for any issues that may arise with them too. One of the things they had in earlier days with digital billboards was the ability, there were some instances in parts of the country where people got into the cabinets and plugged in their own computer, and displayed things that shouldn't be on there. So there is a fail-safe within these that if the cabinet where the computer is located in the back is open, it'll black the screen, and you have to call into network operations, with your name and who you're with before that screen will come back on live, which is, thank God, a good fail-safe that they implemented with that one. In Wyoming, we currently have 16 displays, and we just, put a new one in the ground in Rock Springs. That's a whole new location. In 2023, we have replaced 6 of our displays within Casper and Cheyenne that were about 10, 11 years old with the newer technology that's more efficient. One of the big things with that is the old digital billboards from 10 plus years ago were run off 60 amp breakers. So think of a welder running 24/7. Now they are run off just a 35 amp breaker. So in 10 years, they've managed to cut down the power consumption off one of these in half almost. And so from our green perspective, Lamar recycles all of our static billboard ads. They're the vinyl material or what we call a poster flex material, and when those come down and the ad changes, we bale those and send them to a company in California who then makes bags and surfboard bags, snowboard bags out of them. So nothing gets thrown in the dumpster with that. We also donate to emergency relief. They use them as emergency shelters and tarps for things. All of our displays, we use only North American companies, which all of their displays are manufactured and assembled in North America, and by doing that, it guarantees that it abides by all national and local municipality guidelines as far as lighting, and with the FCC with that. As far as maintenance, we do occasionally have site visits if one of these modules goes out. In the new displays, it's very infrequent that we're there. And then Twice a year, we visit the locations just to check, make sure all the fans are running, birds haven't gotten in there. We don't generally have that issue, and there's been no water intrusion in any way. But altogether, these are fairly weather tight. We rarely see anything get in with them the way they're sealed up. And display replacement, so like I was talking about, we replace every 10 years. We're looking to replace most likely another 6 to 10 displays that we have in Wyoming that have hit that age limit right there with the more efficient technology. Lamar is 8 years into their 10-year program with LED lighting. The previous lights on our static billboards used to be metal halide, and we've converted to LED lighting. And Lamar, Wyoming, as of last year, had completed all of our structures over to the LED lighting. This is a video.
I've been thinking a lot about the unimaginable situations families in Afghanistan, Syria, and other
And then one of the other concerns that comes up is digital billboard safety as far as traffic being distracted by digital billboards. And studies have found that digital billboards do not contribute to traffic accidents, and that is based mainly off of static images. We're not talking about, Vegas with things that are scrolling and moving across, but a static image on a digital billboard is the same as a static image on a static billboard. It's just that it has the ability to flip through multiple advertisers or messages on that single face without any changes made. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I told you that we were going to explain where we thought there were ideal proposed locations here in Laramie, and now we get the opportunity to do that. So this is not all of the billboards, of course, in Laramie, but what we as Lamar are concentrated on, and we believe that these are the ideal locations, is there are 5 boards up and down within city limits on 3rd Street. I'll show you a little bit more of some pictorial examples, and the write-up which you all received had pictures as well of those locations. And then one on Grand, where there are already these types of moving or digital advertisements. So we ideally, Lamar would like to convert, and again, this is not new billboards, this is not adding billboards, this is converting 4 existing static faces. So 3 of those would be on 287. They would be right along the corridor as you either come in from town on 287 north or south, or when you have the ability to enter into downtown. So it would be directing mostly that downtown traffic. We expect that would be where advertisers would primarily be focused. And then one on Grand Avenue that's right across basically from the UW Stadium. And so let me show you those in just a second. We believe that those are the ideal locations in Laramie to drive the network of digital business or drive traffic to those local areas. We by no means are asking for additional structures. I had explained, and hopefully it is logical, why putting these on I-80 do not make sense. They are not used for that bypasser traffic. These are really focused on the local downtown or the local businesses within our community. That's who's going to be utilizing these advertisements, and folks that are that are either truck traffic or just traveling through typically would not use those. Over the past 5 years, Lamar has removed 21 signs and added none. So they have been committed, though not required, to following the plan of removing boards that aren't being used, aren't useful, or are deteriorating in such a way that it doesn't make sense to reconstruct those structures. The boards that have been selected, these 4 boards, 3 on 287 or 3rd Street and 1 on Grand Avenue, are again where we have identified and are really seeking your input as being the most desirable and proposed locations to convert to this modernized technology and also meet the needs of the community and what the businesses desire. So here you can see on the top of the screen, you can see the board that's currently in place right a little bit east of the stadium, or kind of adjacent to it actually, right behind the FedEx office. On the bottom, you can see one of the boards on South 3rd Street when you exit the highway. On the other board, you can see on North 3rd Street, so when you're coming into the community. And then on the bottom, you can see the board that's right kind of in the middle of our community, across from Travel Inn, that currently has a non-digital or a static advertisement. So those are the 4 locations that we have identified would be appropriate for this modernization. Again, seeking your feedback. Here's some other just different views of those boards. What's interesting is you can see, so this is the movie theater, of course, on Grand Avenue, and they are using this same type of technology now. And you can see in the background on that picture on the left, you can see the board on Grand Avenue that we are proposing. Just the other day when I drove by, you could see that on the front of ACPE, there's a huge digital format that's being displayed. There was a big turkey, I think, right before Thanksgiving. And so, again, the locations that we are proposing, we believe are, it is our presumption and our observation that they're consistent with what the signage that's already in the community. Again, not looking to add anything, not looking to expand, just looking to modernize. I'd like to turn it over to Jamie to talk a little bit more about what the benefits are to the community and how some of these Amber Alerts or traffic messages or safety messages or communication platforms that the city's desiring could be utilized within the digital billboard platform.
Thank you. Welcome, Jamie.
Good evening. My name is Jamie Rideout, and I'm the real estate manager for Lamar Advertising. As Megan has said earlier, 93% of Lamar's business in Laramie is local. Advertisers enjoy digital because businesses can update their messages on the street within minutes and have the flexibility to change the creative as often as they want. Digitals are used for helping catch fugitives with the FBI, as in this example here. Amber Alerts to help find missing children nationwide. Again, FBI, we donate millions of dollars, as this slide says, to public service campaigns to advertise public service messaging throughout local area communities. Red Cross uses it in times of disaster, as well as FEMA uses it as well. Also, we use this to feature tributes to local and national iconic figures that pass away. So I'll turn it back over to Megan. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. We wanted to keep this brief. We know you have a busy night ahead of you. Jamie could talk about the benefits for hours and hours and what those have provided to various communities. But we hope, and the reason we're here again tonight is because we believe this is a way to partner and communicate with our community, allowing our local businesses to have more and greater flexible opportunities for advertising and improving their businesses and economies, having state-of-the-art marketing, and giving you all as the leaders and the governing body of our city the opportunity to communicate your messages better and interact with your constituents more. We're certainly aware of the confines within the code now. That is why, again, as I started out, we didn't want to just present some text amendment. We wanted to give you the opportunity to ask us questions tonight or to think of questions and talk with your own constituents and then let us know thoughts, concerns, ideas, etc. We will then work with your planning staff to develop what proposed regulation looks like, whether that's through some sort of variance or a text amendment to your code, and come back before you. But we really didn't want to do that without having the conversation first with you and your planning commission to discuss what you think about this. So, Mr. Mayor, I certainly stand for questions. The team is much more apt to answer any of those questions if you have any, and we just certainly appreciate the opportunity to bring this before you.
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate the opportunity to ask questions before we have something in front of us. Council members, questions? Councilor Shumway, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Megan, what would be the cost for the city for an 8-second slot?
I'll defer that to Craig. The question was, what would the cost to the city be for an 8-second slot?
So,
come up.
Do I need to say my name every time I approach?
No, sir.
So with our proposal, the cost would be $0 for an 8-second slot.
Thanks. Councilor Pierce, or Councilor Shumway, any other questions?
No.
Okay, Councilor Pierce.
I just want a little bit of clarification. So when you say no cost, are you meaning strictly emergency type messaging? But if we wanted to do, for example, more promotion or communication of event non-emergency, would there be a cost for that?
No, so how we have it proposed is you would have a slot to yourself however you would want to use it. The other 7 slots, we'd figure out what we'd price it to customers, businesses, but the city, you would have access to that. 365, 24/7.
Councilor Shumway, sure, go ahead.
Just to follow up, who would be the administrator of the display for the city's slot?
It would be totally up to you. So we have a design team that puts the ads together. So on the design part of it, whoever on your staff that would be in charge of that, they would work with our design team on making an ad. Or we can give you the specs. If you have designers, if you have a marketing team that can put it together, you can do that too. We can schedule it on our end. We can set it up where you can schedule it on your end too. So, if I'm on the golf course drinking a beer on a Saturday and you're wanting to put something up in real time, something happened, you want to get it up there, you can have direct access to that and put it up in real time.
Councilor Newman?
I guess my question kind of goes along with them too. So eight slots, we get 1. Would you guys agree to, you guys get 6 and we get 2? That way we could, and my reasoning is like, what if we're promoting something downtown and then now there's an accident and we want to go in and change it and, maybe just have one blank for that, or like UW traffic or game traffic, whatever.
Well, we have to get everything approved by our corporate office, and with that, there has to be an ROI. If we take multiple slots out, it would be really hard to get approval from our corporate office. Yeah. But we're not negotiating now, but I mean, we're open to anything, but just from sitting here right now, that would make it difficult on the ROI side on our part.
Correct.
For 2 slots.
Correct me if I'm wrong though, right now the ROI is 1 slot, right? Because they're static.
No, meaning as far as ROI,
I know what
Yeah.
ROI means. I'm saying right now, right, you only have one ad up there.
that's right,
So then now we put these new boards on.
right,
Now you can sell 7 more,
right,
6 more,
right.
I guess.
No,
Sorry.
no, yeah, no, I see what you're saying, understood, and it would, I'm not saying yes or no, it would have to be, we'd have to throw that up. I'm not paying for it out of my pocket, so it would have to be,
Absolutely not, right?
yeah. I wish I could.
Second question.
Yeah.
Why not do all 5? Why do 4? Or, yeah. But, because, so, here's my thought, like, we're talking about ROI, we're gonna have to send somebody out to do the other ones if you're gonna have static ones. Why not do them all?
Well, one of the
Counselor Newman, so what we have done tonight is we have presented what we think are the ideal locations that would service the needs of the customers who are going to choose to use this as advertising, as well as be mindful of trying to reconcile where you all may be coming from the city's perspective as far as where they would be located. If the council wants to go to the direction, and that's why we're here tonight, I love the question. If the council wants to go the direction of providing the opportunity for any of those boards to be converted and modernized to this technology, certainly Lamar is open to that. We were trying to just understand where you might be coming from. So if that is where you're thinking, I am pretty sure Lamar would be very grateful for those opportunities.
I won't speak for the whole board, but for me, it just, I don't know, just the ROI. I teach accounting, so it would make sense if we're gonna do one, why not do all of them? That way it's more uniform across the city instead of,
Well, I can say, not directly speaking for Lamar, we would be very interested in having that discussion.
Councillor Doherty and Councillor Pierce.
I think Matt was the one talking about the amperage. Can I hear that again? I wrote down the first, you said the old ones use 16 amp.
No, 65 amps.
65. That's why I thought it didn't really, my numbers didn't look
And this
right.
is for the size that is the size of, well, they're actually a little bit smaller than the static face that's there now. The current static faces are about 10.5 by 22.8, and the new digital faces are 10 by 21. And for that size, the old ones from about 10 years ago used 65 amps to power them, and now they're down to 35 amps.
And can I?
Councillor Doherty, please.
So one of the things that concerns me is the light pollution. This looks like it reduces that. You wouldn't need the light right near the Lamar sign that points up and also
Correct.
points up into the sky, so it's more directional down and doesn't pollute our night skies.
The lights that are there for the static faces go away completely because the face is lit with LEDs, and as I was shown with the louvers, that they angle down towards traffic. So yeah, you don't get the light pollution up into the sky with the digital billboards.
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
Councillor Pierce.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This also has to do with the light pollution issue. So, and also our planning folks, if and when we do this and we write the code, are we going to have to get so detailed in that code and the text to say, because you had said that there's like where you can kind of keep it out of neighborhoods, the vertical.
The louvers on
The
there.
vertical louvers. Are we going to have to say, please put vertical louvers on billboard X to keep it out of neighborhood Y? Is that, and maybe this is like a crazy question, but I just need to know how technical we actually need to be if we know that now.
On behalf of Lamar, Councillor Pierce, if that is something that is important to you, Lamar is definitely willing to work with Planning Commission to identify areas that are within such and such feet of a residential neighborhood that they'll be surrounded by the vertical louver. But I don't think that we haven't even gotten that far yet because we wanted to know, we thought it would be important to you, so we're very willing to work with that.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Taylor, please.
Honorable Mayor, through you to Councilwoman Pierce. So the way we do have code for EMCs now, for electronic messaging centers, which are the pictures that were shown outside of University Plaza. There's probably the most prevalent one that we're all familiar with, but they're around. But those are really, they're pretty strictly regulated as far as how far they can be from residential areas, the light output and things like that would surely be considered. But this work session really is, measuring, I think Lamar would like to know the council's appetite on where you stand on even touching this code and moving forward with anything. But all those things you mentioned are things we would consider if we went down this path.
Thank you, Mr. Gabatuller. Councilor Richardson?
I have a few questions.
Please.
One is with this new technology, when the lifespan of it goes out in 10 years, what happens with all of these digital devices?
So the old displays, Lamar will only use certified recyclers, and the closest one in this part of the country is down in Denver, and it's 3R Technologies. So all of our displays, when we do take them down, have to go to that facility to be recycled, and they completely disassemble and harvest all usable materials out of the old displays.
Great, thank you. My other question is, it seems like, based on previous code, the idea was to reduce billboards in town. And my concern is, and I think I am of that vein, that I feel like keeping our kind of landscape less cluttered, that sort of thing. And I understand that there is not an addition of billboard signs, but it is still an addition of things switching and moving and kind of cluttering up the space. So I don't know if I'm fully on board with it. I'm not sure. I'm kind of torn.
Thank you, Councilor. Vice Mayor and then to Councilor Newman.
Just adding on to what Councilor Richardson said, the fact that it can display 7 businesses in one sign, then that expands the coverage of businesses but reduces the number of signs. So I started, as you were talking, I just started thinking of it that way as well, that it actually has the potential to become a way to reduce signage, yet still increase information to the public.
Councilor Newman?
That kind of goes along with my question too. Are all these signs networked together, or are we going to sell to 7 people in location A and 7 people to location B? And then after you answer that, I have a follow-up.
So we don't know yet.
Okay.
We do network our Cheyenne digitals and we do network our Casper digitals. Depending on, a bunch of variables, we may or may not. Really it's just the temperature of the businesses. I mean, if the businesses are showing that, I know in Cheyenne, they absolutely love the networks because you're hitting different roadways, hitting different eyeballs. We don't have a lot of options here like we do in Casper and in Cheyenne where it's a bunch of different roadways. So that would be up for debate depending on, what got approved theoretically, where they're at, so.
Yeah, Councilor Newman.
Let's just pretend that each one of them's their own billboard, right? So we're going to sell 7 here, 7 here. And we still get 1. Could we have different ads on each one?
Yeah. Thanks. Vice Mayor, please.
I'm just curious, the cost of a static, I would imagine, is one thing. Does this reduce the cost for the retailer or for the person advertising to do it via digital?
That also depends. I'm sorry, I'm being very vague. It can, with the technology of the digital, we have the ability to do real-time messaging. So with the static ad, you contract it, it takes 3 weeks for the vinyl to get printed, for us to install it, so there's a time frame on that, and there's kind of a minimum amount that we will contract because it's a cost for us. With the digital, I mean, we can sell it for a week, we can sell it for 4 weeks, so it just depends on, you know, the vinyl cost too, for a big 14 by 48 we have on I-80 can cost $1,900, so it really limits some of the local businesses. You know, that's more of a long-term thing. It's just a really big cost. So it absolutely could make it cheaper than the static boards.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Shumway, please.
I know you're coming to the city, but my understanding is that you're doing only this on 3rd Street and on Grand, and both are state highways. Are you dealing with YDOT and the city, or just the city of Laramie?
Just the city of Laramie. I'll let you talk about that, but yeah.
They are on private property would be my assumption, right? Sure.
Yeah, YDOT allows digital billboards on state highways. That was passed back in, I think, 08 or 09, so, and I was part of that at that time. So they are allowed, and there's regulations, you know, so typically the state is kind of the baseline, and municipalities obviously can be more strict or lenient, however they feel, so.
Thank you. Councilor Richardson, then Councilor Doherty.
I have no idea if this is possible or not, but is it a possibility to prioritize local businesses for those billboard spaces? Because as I'm thinking about it, like the 3 that I'm thinking of, I think are all not local billboards, down on 2 on the 3rd, and then 1. So just curious about
So
that.
just to understand your question, have certain slots that can only be leased by local businesses?
Perhaps, yeah.
Boy, I'm being real vague with you guys. Maybe it could be a conversation. It would be difficult on our side, you know, being a for-profit company, to give a slot away on each board and then have further regulations that could potentially take away revenue. But I don't know, I'd be interested to see what that would look like, I guess.
Yeah, I guess the reason I ask that is because we've been talking about how these are local billboards, and this is very much in town because it's about community.
And I can tell you, you know, just the size of our markets here in Wyoming, as you saw on that slide, 93% of it's local anyway. So we're not having a bunch of national businesses coming in.
Going into Laramie, wanting to like shine there.
We just aren't, you know, it's just not a big enough market base. And so I think, you know, if that's a concern, I think it would take care of itself anyway. But yeah, I think that could be a
conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Doherty and Councilor Newman.
I just wanted to applaud your company for the recycling of the vinyl. Vinyl's, you know, pretty energy intensive product, and so using it the way you do is pretty responsible, and I just want to applaud you for that. And also that I see the billboards in Laramie. I know one's a jeweler, one's a HVAC, there's often a bank or two or credit union. So I think it would be good for our community to be able to cycle, to have individual slots would probably be cheaper than putting up the vinyl. I think it promotes, and to have the opportunity when there's an emergency to, for the city to be able to put out you know, Amber Alerts, or, you know, don't get on I-80, that kind of stuff. I think that's really valuable. So thank you.
Councilor Newman.
2-part question. I'm sorry. First question, elections coming up. Can individuals call you and put ads up there?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Lamar has a strict political policy where it's rate card rates. It is, you know, if you, it's a prepayment policy on that, just I'm sure like anything else with politics. So yeah, absolutely.
Second part, say I own a business.
Mm-hmm.
Can I buy all 7 slots?
If you have the money to. Yeah.
Okay. And then lastly, a comment. I would like to see language drafted up on changing Just my personal opinion, just to see the language on what you guys are thinking.
Could I add, Counselor Newman, you had a question about the 2 slots. One thing we do, and you saw a slide for it, like for Visit Cheyenne, if we have open spots and you've got that was an example of a ball drop or something coming up, or it's the Jubilee Days coming up, and if we have an opening, somebody can call me and say, hey, look, do you have 2 weeks available for this? That's something that we do all the time. That is not necessarily guaranteed, but it is potentially available, so.
We'll follow up to that then.
Sure.
Sorry. So what if we have on there like visit downtown? And we had an emergency, we can call you and it changed. Could we just revert that back afterwards too, or how long?
Well,
is there a wait?
It's real flexible, so we could do it that way, or they could run at the same time.
Okay. Awesome.
It just wouldn't run as often, if that makes sense, yeah.
I get that.
Yep.
I'm done.
Vice Mayor?
I appreciate the presentation, and I think there are a number of positive potentials here. I think as I said, that it has the potential to actually expand information to the community while reducing the amount of signage. That I like that there's the ability for the person to control the advertisement in real time. And I also appreciate that there's the potential that the cost would probably actually be reduced versus a static, because with the static, you've got the $1,900, you've got the commitment of time that you have to make, whereas this, you could buy 2 weeks, and then that's in and out. So it really allows a lot of variability and flexibility among retailers as well as us. And I do appreciate that if we had something of an emergency, that we have the ability to get in there and do it right then and there. And that we don't have to put an order in and wait for that to get done, and there's no delay, which has kind of been my experience previously with things like this. And so I really think it's user-friendly.
Councilor Pierce?
Yeah, I have just comments now. Honestly, I was not really excited about this discussion tonight, and didn't really think I was going to be supportive. So I'll tell you some of the things that I really appreciate is the actual reduction of the physical signs. I think that could really work out well. And I do, like Councilor O'Doherty mentioned and others, related to the emergency availability for, and even as a communication tool. So I guess with all that said, I guess I look forward to our planning folks coming to us to make sure that we're, not in the light isn't going into somebody's living room kind of thing. So with that, I think we could be okay. I hope. So.
Mr. Gabatuller, please.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, thank you. Just to clarify a few things, so there are only 5 billboards off of the I-80 corridor in the city, all owned by Lamar, and those are the ones that have been presented. So it's not like we have multiple billboard agencies in town. I think that's important to note as we move forward with possibly changing code and allowing for just these to be changed, because I just wanted to note that there isn't actually a reduction. It's just all of them are going to remain. They're just going to turn into digital rather than, so they're not taking any out. That's not the plan that I understand. But great discussion, really, and I think really the point for Lamar, really, it's up to them to bring the text amendment, and we will work closely as planning staff with them, but really they're here to gauge all the council members' input, so that they know if it's worth them moving forward and what exactly, at what degree. So I just wanted to clarify those few things.
Thank you, Mr. Gavato. That's appreciated. Vice Mayor?
I think that I was counting the reduction in that there would be 8 messages per sign or billboard times the 3, so you'd have 24 messages. And so it would allow us with 4 signs to have 32 messages rather than 32 signs. So that's where I saw not the reduction in overall signs, but that the messaging turns over rather than having the same message that after a couple of weeks, I don't see it anymore, for 3 months, for it to break even, it allows more variability. And I just want to finish with, I also came here ready to absolutely hate this. And I'm kind of surprised, but I guess I was thinking of my drive into the Denver airport and the flashing signs and the way I try to turn my head so that it's not hitting me. And so I became a little more amenable once you told me that it would be an LED static version with the capability of changing over and not this flashy lights flashing and scrolling. And so that helped me change my mind a bit. Thank you.
Any other council members? I have a couple questions. I think the first is really about the need of this in our community. I think to go from 5 signs to, the 40 opportunities for businesses. I mean, I think like the rest of council, I look at the same billboard for a year, not changing, right? And when it does, it's like just a different bank bought it now. And not that bankers don't deserve to put their face somewhere, but I think like, is this really something that we need? Because this is a divergence from our policy long-term. And so I think like it's not just about 5 signs. This is about the council saying like, no, actually billboards are going to be okay now. And so if we're going to start heading down that direction, in my mind, we should know if it's needed. And if it's, I don't have to worry so much about your bottom line, right? I would assume you weren't doing this if there wasn't a need, but that feels like a big jump, right? Like from 5 opportunities to 40 opportunities is a change.
May I respond, Mr. Mayor?
Please, yeah,
Thank
please.
you. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, wonderful question. So before we even came to the Planning Commission, we had several focus groups, and those included with the Laramie Area Chamber, as well as with other businesses that currently utilize the boards. For an example, the hospital, right? The hospital was like, this could be a really, I don't want to speak for the hospital, but that was one of the businesses within our communities where you might not see it now because it is there for such a long period of time, but it could be a really helpful thing. Think of COVID, right? And the opportunities of when those clinics were happening, or here's what we're doing as far as prostate cancer screening, or whatever the situation may be. And so I would love if the interest that we gauged after today was for us to take that next step forward and start working on actual text amendment. It was certainly our plan, and we had the commitment from the businesses through the chamber to help support, to help show the need and show the support to you all moving forward. So that has been represented to us. I don't want to speak, of course, for any of them, but there was great excitement about how that would be utilized.
Okay, and then, I think maybe this is, one of those billboards used to be out my back door that's on the list, and it was noticeably different in my backyard when it was something sort of like a white backdrop on the photograph versus when it was like a black backdrop, right? The refracted light was significant. And so, Councilor Doherty, when you mentioned like, oh, we'd be avoiding that light pollution up, a lot of it came into my backyard, and it was sort of like maybe a little disruptive. So I might have a different opinion than most of the council here. And it's a lot about light pollution, and it sort of being like the tallest thing in town, more often than not, would now be lit and sort of like staring at us and changing constantly. To me, I don't think that's a good way forward, but I think more than that, it's about sliding back into billboards being more prevalent in the town. And I think, like, you know, there is maybe a benefit. I think there's also maybe a cost to switching the type, right? Like, we're switching vinyl for maybe rare earth elements and LED bulbs, but there's a cost to this, right? And so we don't have to have any billboards, right? Like, we will have these 5 until they go away, until they aren't used anymore. But we don't have to have any. And so I think that's the direction we are headed, and I'm not sure I'm favorable to turning that ship. But that's just my opinion, and I am in the minority, very clearly. So that wasn't a question, Megan, and I was aimed at a question when I started, and I didn't get there, and I'm sorry for that. But I do think I'm probably in the minority. So, Councilor Shumway?
Thank you. I do not recall any discussion when we permitted the digital sign at the theater. Now, I don't know why we have to go through this discussion when, if it's already been permitted, it seems like something that the city has already taken a position on whether they will be permitted or won't be permitted. Now it's just a matter of who owns the signs and whether or not it gets through the planning commission. But I don't know, did we go through that discussion? I was not a part of that.
No, because I think it's not prevented, Councilor, because it's not a billboard, right? Am I correct, Mr. Gabatuller, that would be because it's a discrete sign, it's not a billboard, and the billboard is what's prohibited. Is that right?
Yes, Honorable Mayor, that's correct. Through you to Councilmember Shumway, that would be considered a electronic messaging center in our code, and they're really regulated to, I think, about 36 square feet is as big as they can be, whereas billboards, I mean, we're talking 11 by 22, I think, is what they currently are. So a billboard is a completely different ballgame than the EMCs that we currently do allow through code.
Thank you, Mr. Gabatuller. Councilor Newman?
No, we're breaking protocol because we're only supposed to talk twice, so I apologize.
Not in a work session, you're just fine.
Okay. Questions for the Lamar folks. So the concern that the mayor had with light, can you guarantee that the louvers that are installed on those boards would stop that to where that light, we could shift it from, you know, somebody's backyard to the street that we're trying to advertise to?
So,
Yeah, really quickly before Matt actually provides the details on it, Mayor Harrington, we're certainly aware of that concern and certainly very mindful of it. You know, it was your backyard, right? And so you know it firsthand. I think what Matt's going to describe is that the technology that's even advanced through today has really helped minimize that reflection and that outpour of any sort of pollution, and Matt can expand upon how the digital would actually provide an even further safeguard for you. But we are sensitive to that, which is why we're again here today.
Sure, I sure appreciate that. Go ahead, Matt.
So one of the, downsides to a static board with, just a light there, we don't have the ability to adjust the brightness of that light for the colored background that you're getting. With a digital billboard, we can adjust the dimming on it, and it can be adjusted for the different shades. So on the new billboard that we just deployed in Rock Springs, I had to go out there after we had built it, and written within their sign code, it has to be at or below a certain foot candle readings for different colors. And so what we do is we run test patterns when it's displayed and stand out there in pitch darkness, not in the middle of the day, with no other ambient light, and we take those foot candle readings. And then if we need to adjust to be within those parameters, we can. But this is the exact same display that we're proposing within Laramie here. And with that, theirs is, it has to be below 3 foot candles. at 50 yards from the display face at center. We didn't come higher on any of the test patterns with the colors or the ads that we're running, over 2.7 on that.
Okay, thank you.
That brings up a good question, though. Can you make it time-wise? So like, let's say after 8, it has to go to
So it's better than doing it just based off time. So each of these displays has what's called a multi-directional light sensor mounted on the side. And so that picks up any ambient light and as the light changes throughout the day and will dim it accordingly throughout the day. Same with, if you get solid cloud cover in the middle of the day, putting it on a timer wouldn't be able to adjust for that, but it will dim it down, as the skies darken up a little bit.
And then I have a question for staff or council.
Go ahead.
When did we want to get rid of these boards? Because I don't remember. Since I've been on, I don't remember a discussion.
Big discussion.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, through you. So as with any non-conforming use, which billboards in the city are, they can't be expanded upon. So it's really the life of the structure, really, and they could even paint them and do some other things that could extend the lifetime of the structure. Just the way our code reads, it's non-conforming, so it can never change. What you see is what you get. It can't be upgraded. If it were to be destroyed in some, fire or natural event, then they would have, I believe it's 18 months to reconstruct it to exactly what it was before. There's that provision. So there's really no telling, but with a steel structure like this, I don't anticipate anything very soon as far as them coming down.
So we don't have like a life expectancy of the ones that are up right now.
I don't.
I can answer that. So for a steel structure in this part of the country, of our lack of salt in the air not being near the coast anywhere, steel structures, as far as without act of God, what they classify, wind events, where it would take the entire thing out. But most of ours have been here for a minute, and with the wind we get, that's not taking any of them down anytime soon. It's pretty much indefinite as far as lifespan on them, because we maintain them by painting them. Every year we try and get in and paint a vast majority of our structures, and we just don't see the rust like the coastal regions do, where it deteriorates the structure itself.
Thanks. Councilor Pierce.
Yeah, thanks. Which kind of gets back to my point earlier about the reduction of the physical sign. I mean, I personally, given that we're going to increase the opportunity on each of the signs times 8, I would really like to see a reduction of perhaps one less sign on Third. Right? Third, because Third had, I'm trying to remember, Third had 5? 4?
No, 5.
5 and 1.
5. Whereas Grand had 1.
We just have the one on Grand.
Yeah, so that's just me personally, because, right? One less big old sign, but many more opportunities to advertise.
One thing that's striking me, Councilor, and certainly not pointed at you, but it feels like we should, as we consider the opportunity for a text amendment, maybe not specifics about a negotiation about our code change. Maybe we should kind of hold those at arm's length, maybe. Only so that it doesn't feel like if you give us this, we'll change the code.
Well,
And I know that's not what you meant. I just want to make sure that, I of course know that's not what you meant. But just to make sure that that's clear, is what I'm saying. For the members of the public is all. Because there was a couple questions that I was like, I don't know. If our attorney was here, we could ask him about it, but. Councilor Doherty.
I just want to also remind us that we just spent a lot of money for a few signs to wayfinding. And if we could have a sign that shows that the rec center is this way and, downtown is this way, it could help counter. That was a lot of money to put up a couple signs that some are obstructed, the actual arrow is obstructed by a telephone pole. So anyway, so I think this can help balance that too. So I too was not a big fan of billboards, but I was the amperage. I'm a lot happier about those things.
Thanks. Councilor Richardson.
I think because I am a bit torn, and I'm leaning more toward you, Mayor, in just not wanting the repeat of billboards. But I think this is something that, for me, I will take back to my constituents and try to get a sense of what they would like, if they feel like this is the way to go, if they, to help guide that. Because if it was, if we did go down this road of reducing billboards because that's what people in Laramie wanted, then I think moving away from this is the way to go. But if people's voices have changed and they feel like this would be beneficial, I think that's how I will approach it.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Newman, then Vice Mayor.
I don't know if you guys are flipping me or not. It's kind of weird. Anyways, so my thought process though is they're here. We just heard that they're going to be here for a while, so why don't we update them? Right? Why? They're already in our skyline. It's not like it's going to change. It's not going to change a view unless we get rid of them. The view is already what it is, and I do like the fact that, how long does a sign last now on there? Like, can I buy it for a month, a week? I guess I needed to know that too, because, if we can turn them over faster, it would help some of the downtown when they're having sales or
Yeah, it's
Cyber Monday, whatever.
very flexible. I mean, the point of the technology is it's been around for a while, to get away from the time restraints it took to get an actual billboard up, to get to more real time. And so, yeah, it's very flexible as far as, I sell it right now as a week minimum, and then people perm them out for 2 years. It just depends on what your budget is, what your need is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Vice Mayor.
And I agree with Councilor Newman. They are already there. And they are, so then do we want the variability or the static? And I appreciate the variability because I think it opens it up to small retail and to local businesses, that they don't have to make this huge commitment. That's kind of out of sight of most of the small businesses, but a week or two would be something that they could do once or twice a year. So I like that it opens it up to the community for better utilization.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else? Mr. Gabatuller, please. Take us home.
Yes. Honorable Mayor, just a point, if we do end up, if Lamar does end up bringing a text amendment forward, I think we need to be really mindful that this is currently not permitted at all. It's a non-conform, the only 5 are owned by Lamar. And I don't pretend to be a lawyer at all, but I'm just looking at the case of being arbitrary and capricious by allowing an expansion of these billboards, but not allowing any more. Say another billboard company wanted to come to town. So we've discussed alternatives with Lamar as far as variances for these signs instead of a text amendment. I don't know where that would go, but I just want to be clear that Lamar is the only game in town as far as advertising or as billboards go. And I think it would be very difficult through code to allow them to expand and not anticipate any new ones and not allow any new ones in the future. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Gabatuller. That's a great place to leave it. I thank you all for being here. Absolutely. I'm going to open this up to the public. If any member of the public wishes to speak to the council on this work session, go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom or come forward in the room. Okay. So, please, Mr. Stratton. You're close, but the furthest away. Give us your name for the record.
Chris Stratton, Laramie Community, or Laramie 24/7. I definitely think that
the idea of digital signing is great. The big question that I would have put to council is more focusing on pricing wise and making for sure that small businesses are the ones that are able to utilize it. It'll be an amazing thing for the city to utilize. You could even advertise city council meetings and maybe get more people involved. But definitely, key point that we need to look at is it going to be a viable thing for our small businesses, et cetera? Because I know the current setup puts it towards the hospital, puts it towards, even Wyotech, or those that actually have the money to do it, rather than small businesses who do have a limited budget. And digital signing, yes, it costs a little bit to put it in, but for ROI for them, they need to look and make for sure that they're trying to hit small businesses and make it price effective for that. Otherwise, it would be a wonderful thing to have for the city in many different ways. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
We appreciate you coming and telling us. Anyone else wish to speak to the council on this work session? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close that public comment and that work session. Thank you all again. Safe travels home.
Can you guys pass down the water?
Councilor Bruce. We're going to open the next work session, which is Solar for All program. Mr. Smith, welcome.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, I'm going to give you a very brief update on where the City Manager's office is with the Solar for All program, and then we have a quick presentation from the Bonneville Environmental Foundation. So in September, the City Manager's office we learned of the Solar for All program, and we had about 12 days to submit a notice of intent. So in our haste, we got it together and we jumped on top of it. And it's a really large program. I won't talk a lot about it because that'll be part of our next speaker's conversation, but we submitted an NOI for $25 million with the hope that we could figure out what we could do with that. That is a large amount of money for a residential solar program. And after we submitted the NOI, the notice of intent to submit an application, we found out there was a statewide application submitted by the Bonneville Environmental Foundation. And they have experience in this realm, and since it's a statewide, it was more likely to be approved from the EPA. So after discussions with the BEF and also the Wyoming Energy Authority, we think it's a good idea. Staff is recommending that we partner with them and move forward with that application. More bandwidth, and it's not only me with the little calculator begging you for accounting tips. And so with that, I will kick it over to Thomas Endicott from BEF, and he'll give a quick overview of BEF and then also their process.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thomas, welcome. The floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Harrington and the other members of the City Council here. Thanks for the invitation to come and talk about the Wyoming Solar for All program. I provided some slides, but I can also share my own screen, so I'm not sure which is the better approach here.
City Clerk, would you like to pull them up on your end or have him?
Mayor, I'm okay either way.
Yeah, Mr. Endicott, we're going to make you a co-host, so you'll be able to share your screen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see here.
And thank you, City Clerk.
Get this. Here we go. Okay, great. I have about 10 slides here. I'll jump right in and happy to take questions at the end. The discussion here is about the Environmental Protection Agency's Solar for All program. So this is a national program, $7 billion nationwide. EPA has stated that they would make an award to each state as well as territories and a handful of multi-state applications and tribal applications. So I'll talk about the program overall and the Wyoming approach, and then a little bit of an overview about the Bonneville Environmental Foundation. The purpose of EPA was pretty specific in this program, address financial and non-financial barriers to residential rooftop and residential serving solar projects specifically for low-income and disadvantaged communities. So this entire program is focused on low-income households, less than 80% area median income, and also federally defined disadvantaged communities. There's a few federal tools out there that help to define these communities. The one we typically look at is Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, which is broken down to census tract level. But any person in the state who would meet this less than 80% AMI would qualify as a participant in the program. And then, of course, this would also include affordable housing properties, multifamily properties that have low-income renters. EPA laid out 5 pretty specific benefits of this program. So the participants need to receive at least 20% household savings on their electric bill for the funds that are invested for their particular project. In our application, we are actually shooting for something closer to 40% household savings for those low-income households. There's also a goal towards job creation. So this is not an insignificant amount of money, a lot of work in solar installation, but also in energy efficiency and some other areas. So whether those are dedicated installers or electricians or electrical companies who can expand their offering and do some of this work around the solar installation. Resilience is always important to communities, increasingly so, and this is specific to resilience of those low-income and disadvantaged communities. If the solar can be an additional benefit, would be resilience. Ownership of the systems, the benefit, as you can imagine, technologies like solar have benefited more affluent people who can pay for those systems, pay up front for those systems that pay them back over 20 or 25 years. So increasing the benefit and the ownership to low income is a goal. And then equitable access for all low income households. The funds through this program, the EPA will award state by state. 75% of the total funds that are awarded to a state have to go to direct assistance, so directly to investments in projects. The other 25%, is a big bucket. It includes community outreach and engagement, technical assistance, as you can see here, other enabling upgrades such as, I misspoke. Of that 75%, 20% of that can go to enabling upgrades. So that would be things like roof replacement, electrical panel upgrades, energy efficiency improvements. The 25% that is not direct investment can go to things like workforce development, community engagement and outreach, technical assistance, those types of activities. There is technical assistance provided through the program, and then EPA has talked about that they intend for this 5-year project, 5-year program to increase market transformation for solar in the future. So a lot of goals, a lot of ambitious goals, but this is what they laid out in the program, and this is what our application addressed. Quickly, about Bonneville Environmental Foundation, we are a 25-year-old nonprofit 501c3 located in Portland, Oregon. We have been active in these 4 spaces that you see here. We have a group that works in watersheds, and we have a group called Business for Water Stewardship, which is focused on water quantity and water quality. Those groups work nationally and internationally. We have an education program that focuses on the energy system, specifically renewable energy systems. And that program, originally focused in the Pacific Northwest region, is now expanded nationally. Our environmental products, which are renewable energy credits, carbon offsets, and water restoration certificates, those are environmental commodities that we sell. Often we're selling to large companies, Fortune 500 companies that want to offset their environmental impact. And then I am a senior program manager with the renewables team here. Traditionally, our focus has always been in the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Montana. We have maintained a contract with the Bonneville Power Administration to help the utilities who buy power from Bonneville, about 120 utilities across those 4 states. We do have one utility in Wyoming, in Jackson, that is a Bonneville utility. And so we've worked with those utilities for the last 25 years to help them develop renewable projects. This is just a quick map of some of the projects that we've done. We've been involved in community solar since 2016, and we've helped utilities and nonprofits and government agencies within those service territories to develop community solar projects, about 40 community solar projects across the 4 states that I mentioned. Traditionally, we've worked with the public power utilities because all the BPA utilities are public power. But in the last few years, we've begun working with the investor-owned utilities in Oregon and Washington because of some programs, specifically low-income benefiting solar programs that exist in those 2 states. So we have a lot of background and experience. And I will also mention our group, the Renewables Group, we develop projects from start to finish. But in this program, we will act as an administrator and will support other groups that will be doing the actual projects and activities. So the Wyoming application, I'll also mention quickly, we've been working in the Northwest region for 25 years. When this program became when EPA announced this program, we went to all the state energy offices in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming and asked them if they were going to apply for this program. Oregon and Washington said yes. We partnered with Oregon on some community solar subaward for their project, for their program. Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming said no, that they did not, that the state energy offices did not have the capacity or the bandwidth to apply for this program and administer this program. And that immediately led to a larger effort, a larger partnership and stakeholder effort that we led to look for who the qualified nonprofit in those states would be to apply for this program. And our original intention is that we would support other organizations in the individual states that had the capacity and the ability to do this. And that's who we were looking for. We had a few pretty big meetings, 30 participants or so. We reached out to 180 different organizations over the 3 states. And in the end, in those 3 states, we were asked to be the prime applicant, and our applications were supported by the state energy offices in all 3 states. So we are the prime applicant for Montana, for Idaho, and for Wyoming on 3 separate state applications for the Solar for All program. The Wyoming funding request, it is statewide. It includes all utility service territories, public power, and investor-owned utilities. The ask is for $34 million. It's a 5-year program. 75% of that $34 million will go directly to projects. In our applications for all 3 states, we also very distinctly said that we intend to provide 25% of the funding, of the total funding, would go to tribal communities. And in Wyoming, there are only 2 tribes. It is the Wind River Reservation, Eastern Shoshone, and Northern Arapaho on the Wind River Reservation. So that is our intention for the tribal communities in Wyoming. This is a 5-year program. The first year is a planning period and stand-up period, a lot of opportunity for involvement from different stakeholders in the state, and then 4 years of deploying the projects and the funds. There is a very strong requirement for participatory governance. I'll talk about that in a minute. And the time frame for this program, we submitted the applications on October 12th. EPA is suggesting that the projects will be awarded state by state for all the states by July 1st. And then that would be the beginning of a 5-year program, the first year of stand-up and the 4 subsequent years for deployment. When we talk about low-income solar, that can be both single-family, whether it's low-income homeowners or low-income single-family renters, multifamily dwellings, again, whether those privately held apartments or affordable housing types of developments, and then community solar, which can be a number of different things, but generally would be generating solar in one place and allocating the benefits to low-income participants in other parts of the distribution system. So I can answer more questions about that if you're interested, but our proposal highlighted that we would initially think that we would be targeting about 20% of the funds to multifamily, 30% to single family, and 50% to community solar. This is just a really simple structure here for what participatory governments might look like, and that will be determined in the first year of the program. We do intend to engage, we've already engaged many organizations, we'll look forward to engaging more, but you can imagine that because of the different aspects of this program, there will be municipalities potentially, affordable housing providers, community action agencies, workforce development agencies, private electrical contractors and solar installers. We want all of those different players at the table, the tribes, to figure out how to prioritize projects, how to engage the community. There are other parts of the larger greenhouse gas reduction program that deal with financing these projects. So there's a lot to coordinate, and that will be in the first year, and we'll look forward and welcome participation from stakeholders who are interested in this program. So again, in the first year to stand up, we want to understand the demographics of the state, the low-income service providers and affordable housing that already exist that can be partners, workforce and contracting, finance, and then policy and regulation at the state and local level in regards to solar. And then to successfully design a solar market strategy, we want to be strategic about how we roll out the program. And it is a part of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, so there is an element of, we will be reporting on all the projects and the amount of greenhouse gas reduction that will be documented for all the projects in aggregate. Outreach and engagement, what best way to do that? Workforce and contractor development. We already believe that in Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana, we may be challenged to deploy this money because of there just aren't that many solar contractors and even electrical contractors in rural areas, which might be a focus of some of this development. So there are questions already there. What our financial assistance strategy is and what our project technical assistance strategy will be as well. Just a handful of points here. Some of the barriers in Wyoming, the state law is that utilities only have to allow 25 kilowatt systems for net metering. So that is not as much of an issue for single family homes, but it is a bigger issue for affordable housing complexes or community solar projects, which are more cost effective and have other benefits than single family homes. Workforce availability that I mentioned, lack of community solar policies. Some other states have community solar policies, but Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming do not. And then I mentioned finance and ownership. And then also this last piece of, we have proposed that the breakdown will be 50% single family, 20% multifamily, 30% community solar, but that can change. And that will be one of the questions that we'll want to discuss in that first year of stand-up and figure out how to be most strategic in deploying the funds in these different areas. So that is the end of my presentation. This is my contact information, and I am happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Endicott. By chance, do you happen to know, before I go to the council, what census tracts in Laramie qualify?
That is an interesting question. So according to the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool that I mentioned, there are no disadvantaged census tracts in Laramie.
And is that a requirement, or do you just have to meet one of those stipulations?
So that is one way that properties could qualify, but just the residents meeting the less than 80% AMI is also a qualification. So if there are low-income residents in Laramie, low-income affordable housing developments, those individuals or those properties would certainly be eligible for this program.
Thank you. Councilors? Councilor Doherty.
I was under the impression that the reason Teton County or Jackson could do community solar is that they get their electricity from a co-op, whereas we get ours from a corporation. Do you know if community solar works when you're buying your power from a big corporation?
Yes, so there is a very important distinction between the consumer-owned utilities or public power utilities and the investor-owned utilities. So I'm not extremely familiar with the situation in Wyoming, but in general, there's a public utility commission or a public service commission that oversees the investor-owned utilities, and any type of community solar program for the investor-owned utilities would have to be approved through the Public Utility Commission. For the consumer-owned utilities, rural electric co-ops, I don't know if you have PUDs or municipal utilities in Wyoming, but those utilities are able to make those decisions at the board level, and they could make those decisions as a policy across their entire distribution network of the utility, or they can make those decisions on a project-by-project basis. And we've seen that in all 4 states that we work in today, in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Montana. There have been consumer utilities who have made community solar a policy, and then there are also those who have done community solar projects as standalone projects.
Councilor Shumway.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Endicott, this may be just a generalized question, but when you talk about 80% of average medium income, we're talking about families that probably can't afford the investment. I know that there's a 25% benefit if they decide to do solar, if we can find people that will install solar. And you said the payback is 25 years, which would 25% credit would probably make that payback somewhere between 15 and 20 years. I don't know where a person that's below the median income is going to find the initial investment, which should probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $20,000 to make this kind of an installation. And so I don't know how much participation we can anticipate. Any thoughts on how that's working on 80% AMI in the states that you're already servicing?
Yes. So there are sort of sky's the limit in terms of options that could be considered for those households that are 80% AMI, which is all of the ones that need to be the benefit in this program. In terms of homes owning solar, like a single family home that's owning solar, our proposal has been that effectively those systems will be built on those homes for free, whether that's a forgivable loan, whether it's a grant, whether it's a rebate. There may be some legal reasons why we need to do it one way or the other, but our proposal basically has said for less than 80% AMI, these households need to be able to get these systems for free. And then they benefit from those systems for the 20-plus year lifespan of the systems. In some other situations, like affordable housing complexes, for example, that may be privately owned or owned by nonprofits, or community solar projects that could be owned by private entities or nonprofits, they may be the ones that could structure a situation where the residents, the low-income households, are receiving savings on a month-to-month basis or on an annual basis, but they're not paying anything up front. So we're very clear that people who are under 80% AMI do not have money to invest. They may already have trouble paying for their utilities, and so they should receive that benefit without any upfront investment.
Thank you. Councilors. Okay. Yeah, Councilor Pierce?
Yeah, I just have not a question for Mr. Endicott, but more for city staff. In terms of if we are able to move forward with this, do we need to look at and develop A, policy, and B, look at our ordinance related to, angle of putting the solar components on the roof, making sure that they're not in shade? I think we have an ordinance that says, you can purchase, 75 feet above your home to have solar. I mean, do we need to really start thinking about stuff like that at this point?
Honorable Mayor, through you to Councilor Pierce. Our code's actually very supportive of solar at this point.
Okay.
So I don't know that code is really going to be an issue. And we've also recently, last year, I can't remember what we completed, but we reached I think the silver level for solar. What, solar? Thank you, Councilor Doherty. Solar Smart, which means that we're pretty much poised to support the advent of solar in our community. So I don't know that we have to look at too much, and I think we're pretty well set for that.
Great, that's really good news. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Richardson.
Mr. Endicott, do you know, thanks,
Please,
sorry.
yeah, of course.
Do you know if the state is, assuming that this is awarded to the state, if the state is providing any kind of training to get enough folks on board to help implement this? Do you know if that's been talked about at all? Like
Are you talking about workforce training
workforce training.
There is another program through, I can't remember if it's through EPA or U.S. Department of Energy, that is significant funds for workforce training for solar. And I don't remember if the Wyoming Energy Authority has applied for those funds. So they are set aside for each state if they want to apply for them. And I don't know if Wyoming has decided if they wanted to apply for those funds or not.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Any other council members? Steph, do you need any direction from us or anything, or was this just for our own education about where we're headed? Thank you. Great. Mr. Endicott, I appreciate the work you're doing and appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us.
Great. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. If you hang out for just a second, we'll go to the public in case they have something that you might have insight to.
Sure.
At this point, we'll open the floor to the members of the public who wish to speak. If you're in the room, please come forward. You can also raise your hand on Zoom. Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. And Councilor Pierce has something she'd like to add?
Yeah, just one more thought regarding the county. Have we had discussions with the county in this regard for potential partnerships, or are we just looking within city limits?
Mr. Mayor, please. At this point, I've reached out to the city of Sheridan. I've reached out to multiple contacts that I have throughout, and also Albany County. When we first learned of this, and we actually were notified of this from ARE, and the county was on that email, so they are aware of it. Okay. I have not had any discussions with the county though. So
okay.
And just one quick thing, if you'll permit me. I'm so thankful for BEF and Thomas for, as you can see, this is a massive undertaking, and just from a staff perspective, we truly appreciate their partnership.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We share that sentiment. Councilor Doherty, please.
I know at least one county commissioner would like to get solar on all of the buildings and be involved with community solar, so I think it would be a good partnership.
Okay, and I can reach out to that commissioner and make sure the communication's happening through so that we're all on the same page as this moves forward, and we'll just cross our fingers from here. Assistant City Manager, okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that work session then. Thank you, Mr. Endicott.
Thank you.
Good hearing from you. All right, council members, we're going to move on to council updates. Counselor Somerville, do you have any updates? Can we assume no. Counselor O'Doherty?
None.
Counselor Shumway? Just the traffic commission that I missed?
I don't, just one quick thing. I don't think that the person that we approved for the council to approve, the person that we approved is not on our drafted agenda for next week.
You had interviews and appointed a person to traffic commission?
Yes, that we recommended
Okay.
for the council to approve for the traffic
Nancy and I
safety.
will figure it out.
Did you get that?
I did
I can
not
give you the
receive that
name.
from staff, so I can follow up with that.
Yeah, we gave that to Cindy, and so it's Brett Glass, and there's just one, so that's the one that we're.
He was on the last agenda.
We did it
So
already.
you took care of it, okay.
It's sorted.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was
good.
last
Last week.
It's all done, all
Great.
right.
Glad we sorted that out. I was like, did we really
I
miss
was
that?
unable to attend that.
That's all right.
meeting, so good.
Yeah, no problem. It happened.
Good.
Anything else, Counselor Shumway?
No.
Okay, Counselor Pierce?
Nothing for me at this time, thank you.
Okay. My only update, the Civil Service Commission, the Vice Mayor and I met, did interviews for that, and we will have on your next agenda a new member of the Civil Service Commission following former Mayor Pelikas's resignation from that board. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor O'Doherty and I continue working with the Housing Rental Work Group. We met Friday, November the 17th. We have 2 surveys, as I had informed you. One created by Carly Provenza, the other through the city manager's office. We looked at these 2 surveys, and they are not duplicative, and we developed a strategy for Carly Provenza to disseminate hers first, and that we would follow with ours. And they are looking at rental experience so that we can begin to understand the types of problems, the scopes of the problem, and the frequency. So that's that. Then Councilor O'Doherty and I also met with members of the city manager's office with Galaxy Digital, and to look at a platform called Get Connected. And we're continuing our search for a volunteer platform that would facilitate our being able to connect with volunteers throughout the city. We were very impressed with this, and one of the side parts that make it positive is that the university also uses the same platform, and it may allow us to smoothly integrate some of the things. And we could post to council, if you like, the site for the university site, so you get a sense of what it looks like. But this, the city manager's office has a plan for the implementation that would not burden IT. And then Planning Commission met last night, and the primary thing, we looked at a piece of property at the southeast corner of South 15th and Bill Nye, and it's a large steel structure. And they are wanting, what we needed to do last night was the initial platting. It has never been platted, and the intention of this is to develop what is currently called a condominium storage. And it is a type of a storage that often in some communities, I had to look all this up, is used for high-end type of boats, RVs, where people want to store them. And these and they buy the space, and apparently if you build the space on your property, the return is something between 60 and 65%, so you don't ever really make money on it. And apparently you buy you don't own the property, but you own the space, and you sell that, and it becomes a type of community. But it kind of got us in the weeds, but the initial piece was the platting of the property, and then the next thing we'll do is begin to move forward on that. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilor Newman?
No updates at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. Councilor Richardson?
No updates, thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to move on to our agenda.
Councilor Somerville.
Councilor Somerville had told me, she just texted no updates. She tried to speak and we didn't hear her, so she texted me and said no updates. Thank you. But if you have more to add, Andy, please feel free to raise your hand. Okay.
Mayor, I don't.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. So on to the agenda review. If anybody has any questions, one note, City Clerk, I didn't note this in our previous agenda review, but I would imagine that Wyoming Community Gas and those nonprofits will want to have some sort of presentation. They typically do, and I think it's worthwhile. So maybe 9H should go on our regular agenda, or we could have them for a sort of like a presentation during the proclamations and presentation section. That would be my preference, to have them kind of up front in the meeting so they aren't hanging out all evening. Does that work?
Yeah, I can let our Administrative Services Director, Jen Wade, know that that's the wish of the council.
Thank you. And this is the presentation of the checks, right? Not just us saying these are who it's going to?
Right now, I believe it's the check designation.
Okay.
So this is the
Then
form
this is
that
fine.
Wyoming Community Gas sends us every year, and we have to designate who we want those to be made out
great.
to.
Then disregard all of that.
Yeah, Mayor, I
thanks.
think, well, I'm going dead here. We approve the distribution, and then they come for the presentation. So they probably won't be here for the approval of distribution.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, council members, anything else on the consent agenda that you're wondering about? We're going to do a similar thing with public hearings to rewind a little bit that we did last week because we have so many.
Your Honor, I have one. I see we have the renewals of taxis. There's 3 of them. I don't understand why we have to do renewals of taxis when we don't do approvals or of Uber or Lyft. Why are we still doing taxis when they're very similar to Uber and Lyft?
It's a good question that I don't have an answer to.
So without going into a lot of detail, there is a statutory, not a requirement, but a limitation, that determines that we can't regulate the Uber drivers and things to that nature. So, yeah, that's as much as I can probably offer right now without having all those materials in front of me. But in our research into our business licenses, we did come across that state statute that does prohibit us regulating those services.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's quite contentious elsewhere as well. Any other questions on this section of the agenda? Okay. All right. On to the regular agenda. Have a grant application for, or an agreement for an RTU 8, which I learned about in our agenda review meeting for the rec center. And I think maybe council members, I'll just draw your attention to 13, just because I suppose once this agenda gets published, because it says 15th Street, you're going to hear about it. That is an effort for, it's been a bunch of back and forth conversations between the university and the city about how to handle their intention to increase bus service on campus and the new dorms and the loss of parking. And you might recall their roundabout that was sort of in a bus stop in a roundabout. It is the outgrowth of that to try to find a solution, and we have come to one that works. So it is not to like, sort of tell you too early as not an engineer, it is sort of like two roundabouts, one right at Ivinson and 15th, one at Willett, so you could enter with a bus from any direction and then leave any direction by using the roundabouts. So it sort of, it allows them to have a bus stop in the middle of there that's not sort of impeding traffic, that works with our engineering department. So, yeah, Councilor Doherty.
I just want to say for the record, I'm really unhappy that these roundabouts are happening, like just with engineering and not to us, because the people are going to come to us. And also, I don't see how roundabouts help pedestrian crossing. That really worries me, because when there's a light, you can have a red in every direction and people can cross. But if you have roundabouts, I just don't see where they've accounted for pedestrians, so I'm not real excited. Thanks.
You bet. All right. Any other questions on the regular agenda, council members? Councilor Pierce?
Back to the previous discussion, is it Ivinson? Or is
it is Ivinson.
Okay.
And Willett.
Okay.
So the previous one was proposed at Willett. The second one allows them to leave the bus stop, which would, I think, be on the west side of 15th Street and sort of pulled out of traffic a little ways. And then you could sort of like leave, take the roundabout, take the Willett roundabout, and go back up to, I think the conceived parking is at the stadium for the dorms. So, yeah. Please, Assistant City Manager, save me.
Honorable Mayor, I think the point of this resolution is to let the council know that staff's working with University of Wyoming on what they feel like is going to be an acceptable roundabout or situation that can be addressed, and it still has some improvements to it. This is by no means the final design, but it has some work to be done to it, and they have taken into consideration some different pedestrian movements. So I would encourage everybody to wait until you see the design to see what's coming.
Thank you. So yeah, this is just authorizing our staff to keep working with the university on this idea. Councilor Newman?
I assume that this is going to be a major topic that we're going to have to talk about. Should we move it somewhere else in the agenda, like towards the end, or maybe the beginning? I just feel like the outlash that I've heard of roundabouts, this could get interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to leave it where it is, only so that our staff is a little bit more compartmentalized, so we don't have folks sort of like waiting on each other. But if it feels like it's going to get wild, we can move it that day if we want to. That's my thought. So, once we actually see the document and things like that, we'll know, right? Like we'll have an idea when we come in. If a lot of folks showed up to talk about it, we'll know.
And the planning pieces tend to go pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We've gone through them before.
Councilor Shumway?
Mayor, I was on the initial planning for the parking structures, parking garage. My understanding, unless they've moved it, it's not going to be by the stadium. It's actually going to be probably across from our cemetery.
You're right, yeah. Thank you for asking that question, because I had heard that some of the satellite parking, what already exists out by the stadium, could be utilized for people living in the dorms. I don't know, I mean, I'm speaking about their plans in a way I probably shouldn't, but buses sort of shuttling people back and forth to their cars and to the dorm. Yeah, not the parking garage. You're right there, for sure. Okay. Anything else on this agenda? Okay. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned.
Thank you.